Inocente. It is Monday, April 14th, and I'm sitting here in my home office, just hanging out, just catching up on some work. Um, Kind of a lax-ish weekend. My listing in Newhall. We had open houses. We just dropped the price down to 500,000. If you're looking for a super cute condo that's by all the great Newhall, you know, restaurants and things like that, like Main Street and stuff. But I had two colleagues of mine, two agents, host that. So I was able to spend the weekend with my family, do some cleaning, some gardening, some reading. I've been reading The Women by Kristen Hanna, about a young girl who becomes a Vietnam combat nurse. Very good. Like I think about halfway through the book now. So that's been really enjoyable. And yeah, so I wanted to come on and talk about, I've had a couple of questions lately about like the market crashing, and I know things are weird, and I'm not going to lean one way or another on this podcast, but just it feels like things are always weird. So I wanted to basically go over, have a lot of notes, that I've taken and organized and, tried to form into full thoughts. So hopefully it makes sense on this, but, and just kind of talk about like actual numbers and things, and not just like, I feel like with 2008, I had only been out of high school 2 years, so I don't even feel like at the time I fully knew what was happening, but, that's still even something that's burned into people my age, our brains, because it was just such a terrible time, and everyone talks about it, and they think, it's like every time something happens, we think that the market's going to crash, and I'm going to talk about it more, but out of the last 8 recessions, only 2 times the market has crashed. The one time was in like 1981, where prices dipped nationally like about 2%. And then the other was 2008, where homes lost about 20% of their value. And that's what's burned into our brains. But there are 6 other recessions that happened that prices didn't, but they actually went up. So I just kind of want to talk about that a little bit. I think that the news I don't care what network, they don't do a great job of having context or anything. And if you're super busy or whatever, like what time, you don't have any time to deep dive into things, and whatever, it's the same for me with other topics. I just know because this is my job. But I don't have the time to look at other things, what I mean? We all have lives and stuff. So I just kind of wanted to, this may not be the most exciting episode, but if you've been wondering about a crash coming or the likelihood or whatever, this might be something that's helpful. And if you think it is, please share with somebody else. I guess just some housekeeping. So obviously, as the podcast is titled, my name is Kim Inocente. I'm a licensed real estate agent in California. I primarily serve northern Los Angeles County. So Santa Clarita, the Antelope Valley. I've served those areas for over 9 years, believe it or not. And if you have questions about like my broker's license, how to get in contact with me, all of that will be in the show notes. And what I would like to start off this by saying, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what the future will hold. What I can say is the data that I have now and things that have happened in the past, and we can use those to try to help us make the best decisions for ourselves, instead of making those decisions based on fear. So, sorry, I had to cough. I didn't mute myself. So that's just, that's what we're talking about now. Just keep in mind, I have notes in front of me. So, cause I don't want to, I want to be as accurate as I possibly can. So my first thing that I want to talk about, cause it really, it really irritated me. Patrick Bet David. Some people love him. Some people don't. I don't really care about this man at all, but, he did recently post online, something without context, believe it or not. Wow. Are we surprised, right? just another talking head that's just trying to get, it's like clickbait or something, you know. I mean, he posted something, and I'm doing this from memory, so you may have to like go back and look it up, or message me on Instagram if you want the link. But it was something to the effect of over 6 million Americans are behind on their mortgage. This is the highest amount in the last 20 years. Brace for impact, I think is what he wrote. And while it's not factually wrong, but what he left out is that those are not for single family homes. Those are multifamily units. So those are people that own, you know, triplexes, apartment building, things like that. It's not like if you own your house, you know, in a neighborhood. Those are not the people that he's talking about. But that's the stat he was quoting without giving the context, because that's not, you know, that doesn't give the shock value, right? Like he wants comments and clicks and engagement. Don't we all on our social media profiles? But that's what was happening there. So that stuff is really irritating. So I want to kind of paint the image of like what is happening on a national level. So because, you know, we think, oh, the market will crash, everyone's going to lose their homes. Well, like who? Because we have such a high amount of homeowners in this country with their homes paid off. About 38% of homeowners in the United States have their homes paid off. Okay, that's a lot. In addition to that, the average homeowner in the United States has about $300,000 in equity. So, in addition, let's think about this. A lot of people bought their homes when rates were low or refinanced into those low rates. And a lot of these people have really low mortgage payments compared to what they would pay if they had to rent. So if you were in a bind, you lost your job, whatever the case is, the average homeowner has $300,000 in equity. Okay, let's forget about the people who have their homes paid off. I think that that's just you know, you can do the math there. But the average homeowner has about $300,000 in equity. So I would argue that there's a large number of people who, if they couldn't make their payments and things like that, they can sell their homes and either walk out, you know, maybe with nothing, but not owing anything, or walk out with a little bit of money in their pocket. They don't need to just like lose their homes and give them back to the bank. And there are a lot of people, again, with those low mortgage payments that would pay more money if they lost their homes, if they had to rent. So those people are going to fight super hard, I would imagine, to stay in those homes. Okay. In addition to that, what will prevent a crash is a supply and demand. You know, there can't be a crash if there's not enough demand to meet, or there's not enough supply to meet the demand. Now, if we had the opposite problem, yes, if there was too much and no one was interested, yes, prices would fall a lot. But, you know, with housing inventory, so as we sit as a nation, we have about 28.5% more inventory compared to this time last year, but we still have 20.2% less than pre-pandemic levels. And that's according to Realtor.com. So we have gotten a lot more inventory that's come on the market, but we are not near what we had when we were in more of a stable housing situation before the pandemic. In addition to that, and I'll want to compare the days on market with what we're seeing in Santa Clarita. But right now, on average in the nation, homes are sitting on the market about 66 days. And if we want to talk about price growth, so some real estate stats, they're a couple months behind. I'll be upfront and honest with you. A lot of the data that I will go into is for March, but just so you know, the national price from FHFA, their price growth it looks like we're moderating. So we have about 4.8% nationally as of January in price growth. So it's not this, giant jump up. But again, prices are still growing. It's just at a much slower pace, which is good. That's a good thing. But anyways, so we have 66 days on market national average. And again, we're seeing more inventory come up, but nothing like the previous years. So what I want to do is I want to look at March 2025, so last month, all the way to March 2018. And I just want to compare so you can see what like the COVID years look like compared to like a couple of the regular years before 2020. So this last month, we had 366 new listings come up in Santa Clarita. Listings spent about 56 days on market, and we had a median sales price of $789,900. Now, let's compare that to March 2024. And I'll put all of these numbers I pulled from the MLS in the show notes if you want to look at them more closely. But March 2024, we had 303 new listings, so 63 less. A home was spent about 89 days on market, so they took longer to sell last year, and we had a median sale price of $790,000, so $100 more. To me, same, no change. Now, March 2023, we only had 285 new listings come to the market that month. Homes were spending about 75 days on market, and we had a median sale price of $730,000 in March 2023, which you will note that's when rates started to really tick up. In March 2022, we had 463 new listings. So we had a lot more inventory. Homes were spending about 65 days on market, and we had a median sales price of $825,000. This is before, again, rates doubled. And so that's the highest median sale price we had in Santa Clarita of all the Marches that I looked at. Now, March 2021, we had 516 new listings. Homes were on the market for 47 days, and we had a median sale price of $740,000. 2020 March, 360 new listings, 89 days on market, and a median sale price of $570,000. So this is before shit hit the fan, as you can see. And March 2019, 458 new listings, 113 days on market, and a median sale price of $542,000. And then my last year, March 2018, that I pulled, 434 new listings, 100 days on market, and a median sales price of $530,000. So 2019 and 2018 were really more normal years. We had, still a little bit of a housing shortage, but there was more things on the market. Things were staying longer on the market. You can see from 2018 to 2019, we did have an increase of about $12,000. But what I find interesting is that our numbers now, 366 and 56 days on market, they're not too bad if you compare it to some of these earlier pre-COVID years, March 2020, 2019, 2018. And in fact, homes are selling faster than they did in those quote unquote normal years. So what I would say is, you can see the number of new listings we've had come to the market in Santa Clarita last March. It's higher, obviously, than the 2024 and 2023. So we've had a growing supply of homes for sale locally. Obviously, my $100 change between 2024 March and 2025 March, I would just say it's a cooling and stabilization, of prices here in the Valley. But we're still significantly higher than those pre-pandemic levels. Those are in the mid fives. But what I found the most interesting to me is that the days on market have decreased a lot between last March 2024 and March 2025. So even though we have more supply coming to the market, they're still selling at a very faster pace. So we have, there's a lot of demand still there. And so, if you compare the peak activity of March 2021 and 2022, we do have less listings, but the pace is still relatively brisk. Like I said, in 2021, we had 47 days on market. In 2022, we had 65 days on market. And right now we're sitting at about 56 days on market. So homes are still selling, at a good pace is basically the gist of it. So, I think that we're undergoing a shift here. But inventory is increasing, demand is still really strong. Again, the price didn't really change between March 2024 and March 2025, median price. But I don't think that this signals a crash. I know that, like I said earlier, the 2008, housing crisis, it's like burned into our brains. And I wish that it wasn't, because while it was a lot, and I think that there was a lot that needed to change, and I'm glad it changed. I don't think that we have, again, like there's like some context missing there, because, that was just a very different situation. We've had, 8 recessions. Out of the 8 last recessions, only 2 of them saw price drops. One of those times we saw price drops was in 1991. The simple explanation, because I was only like 5 years old or something, and I don't remember that one. That one's not burned into my brain. But, oil prices went up. There was a mini bubble in the real estate market. And so what happened is there was a price decrease at about 1.9%. I would say that 2008 was obviously a lot worse. Under 2%. I don't, it's still a bummer, but it's not the same as what we saw in 2008. I mean, in 2007, before the housing crash, it was very, very easy to get a loan. And the idea of real estate was, I think some people still have this idea, which is, I wish they didn't, but, buying and selling houses was easy money. And then we always thought prices will always go up. Real estate's a very roller coastery type of, situation. Over time, if you look in like a big context, prices will go up. They have always gone up, but it doesn't mean that there won't be a dip or something, right? But the common belief was they always go up. There was a huge building boom, so many new houses going up everywhere. I'm sure you remember, or I do, when I lived in Palmdale as a kid, like out of high school, there was like all these like half-built construction sites, and things just kind of stopped. Mortgages were really, really easy to get back then. You did not have to have proof of income. Some lenders weren't really even checking if you could actually pay. And then you couple that with very small or zero down payment programs. Some people were doing like interest-only loans and things like that. There just weren't many rules. It felt like this big party. People were ignoring risks. And so it just was like a really bad combination. Now, we all know what happened with that. But since then, there have been a lot of changes and regulations put into place. So now, lenders, they have to check and show that you can actually pay the loan. They've created a lot of different rules for safe loans that don't have risky features. The government's really made an effort to stop salespeople from pushing really bad loans for profit. Loan information has even been made to be more clear and upfront. Your lender is supposed to provide you with a loan estimate. Typically what I do when I have like a client is I'll ask them to go get pre-approved by, a couple lenders, and we can compare fees. That loan estimate will show what the lender's charging, all the different things, and you can kind of look and see what it's going to cost you. You have your closing disclosure that's sent out a few days before you close on the loan so that you can have any issues addressed or, answer any questions. We push for really honest appraisals. You don't get to choose your appraiser. I don't get to choose your appraiser. No one gets to choose your appraiser. Your appraiser is basically picked at random. So we're not, we don't have any control. It's basically supposed to be an unbiased now third party. The regulations, they've basically been beefed up to make sure that lending is now responsible and transparent. Those risky practices that caused the 2008 crash, they've done a really good job at preventing them, or trying to anyways. But that's kind of like the image that we have in our mind, but we have all these other recessions where home values went up. The only thing that's consistently gone down in recession is mortgage rates. I'm sure we remember 2020, right? Everyone, was like, this is the worst time to buy a house, and the rates dropped and everyone was jumping to it. And now all the people who didn't jump to it wish they had jumped to it. But either way, falling mortgage rates, those are a trend during recessions. So in 1980, rates dropped by 4.25. 81, they dropped by 5%. 91, they dropped by 2.25. 2001, they dropped by 0.63%. 2008, they dropped by 1.13. 2020, they dropped by 1%. So that's typically what happens. And when those rates drop, they do make borrowing money more affordable. Homes become more affordable. Now, depending on how more affordable they get, people can offer more money, prices go up. That's why the other 6 recessions, prices went up, people can buy more. So if a recession occurs, lower mortgage rates can make homes more affordable for buyers. So, I know that we're all worried. Like I said, things are weird. When are they not weird anymore? But if you're really afraid that the market's going to crash and you're holding off, I would suggest talking. It doesn't have to be me. It can be any agent. Just pick a good one. But you could talk to somebody. Let them show you the numbers. I'm happy to meet with you to do even just a mini consultation over Zoom. We can meet at a coffee shop. I have a preference right now to San Fernando Coffee Company on Soledad, but we can meet anywhere, any coffee shop or on Zoom, and we can really talk about the numbers and what your goals are. I think that my goal is not to push anybody into doing something that they're not ready to do. But I feel that if you have the income and some savings, and a steady job, it might be worth looking into. The home price expectation survey, that, the last I saw, based on where they think prices will go, if you bought a $400,000 home between now and 2029, I want to say you're estimated to gain about $85,000 in equity. So as far as I can see, I don't have a crystal ball, but it doesn't seem like there's a crash coming. And so I don't want anybody to hold out their plans or make any decisions based on fear. I feel like I've had my license 9 years now. So I got it at the end of 2016. And since I've had it, even before then, when I was working at the bank, I kept hearing, oh, the market's going to crash. The market's going to crash. The market's going to crash. The market has not crashed yet. I'm not saying it will ever, but I've talked to so many people who, had all these fears of, oh my gosh, this and that. And some of them are still renting and they kick themselves. So again, if you want to talk more about this, just reach out. I'm super happy to help. This is not the best produced podcast, but I wanted to make it because I wanted to have a place where I can talk in more long form, I guess you could say, about what's going on and, things I've read and stuff. I found that Instagram's not really the place where people want to learn stuff sometimes. So this is kind of what I've ended up doing. But so if you have any questions, reach out to me. My phone number is 661-618-2591. My Instagram and all that stuff will be in the show notes. In addition to my buyer's guide, so if you're not super ready to maybe talk with me or anybody else, I have a free buyer's guide that you can download that just kind of goes over some other things that you need to know when you're buying a home. So that will be in there also. And thank you so much for listening. If you found this to be helpful, informative, please share it with somebody. I'm just, a local Santa Clarita gal in her office talking to herself. And yeah, I would appreciate you sharing it. So anyways, I will talk to you later. Bye.